You're really clueless, aren't you? The inheritance, the inheritance. Hurry up and hand it over."
As soon as she entered the front door, my sister-in-law barged in and started talking nonstop, clearly in a good mood. We were never close, so why now? I was bewildered when these words hit me.
"If it weren't for Mike's inheritance, I wouldn't come near this gloomy place."
Indeed, to her, who is dressed head to toe in glitzy clothes and accessories, the house, where her brother Mike and his widow, me, live must seem gloomy. However, I fought my sister-in-law, who wouldn't even pay respects to the deceased Mike's altar, and brought up the inheritance while standing at the entrance, was much more insidious. This attitude of hers was not something new. She was arrogant about her looks and often harsh towards my gentle husband. I heard from my husband that she changed her tune dramatically and became ingratiating once he started succeeding and earning a substantial income. I was utterly appalled by her coldness. She barely visited him during his repeated hospital stays due to chronic illness, and didn't shed a single tear at the funeral. I had decided to cut ties with her, but the greedy sister-in-law would not allow that.
"Come on, I don't have all day. Hurry up, you must be busy, right?"
The sister-in-law, with her eyes sparkling childishly, was convinced she would receive the inheritance without a doubt. But I hold something that will distort that expression of hers. It's the last words from my late husband. This will explain everything. I am Sally. Widowed early in my mid-60s, I led a modest life, not growing taller than necessary. About a month ago, I lost my beloved husband. It was due to a worsening of a chronic illness that he had been dealing with for many years. My husband and I met and married when we were both in our 40s, so we didn't have any children. For 20 years, we supported each other, so the sense of loss at that time was significant. I even considered following him in death, wondering if there was any need to continue cooking for someone else since we had no children, but I lacked the courage, embarrassingly. Moreover, my late husband repeatedly told me, "No matter what happens to me, don't get discouraged. You are an independent and wonderful woman." I couldn't ignore the words of my husband, now his last testament. Life changed drastically after my husband passed away. I was with him in the hospital at midnight, and right after, I was arranging the funeral, and everything proceeded smoothly. It was the only time I was saved from being sad or thinking about my husband in a daze. Encouraged by many, including my sister and her husband, who helped with the funeral preparations, I managed to get through that tumultuous month. I barely remember that time, but my sister later told me, "You did a fine job sending Mike off. He must be resting peacefully in heaven." Despite the initial confusion and stress that made me ill for a few days, not everything was bad. More people attended the funeral than I expected. Since my husband had originally worked for a nationally known company and was an executive at its headquarters, I expected that many people I did not know would be there. Indeed, the people from the company who attended the ceremony spoke highly of my husband's good character, and even sent him off with tears in their eyes. There were even attendees who flew in from international branches, sharing how they often went out for drinks when my husband visited their locations. Though I regret not spending more time with each person, I diligently noted everyone's names and addresses to properly express my gratitude later through condolence returns. My sister and her husband helped greatly with these arrangements, so now I can finally catch my breath. I feel immense gratitude, thinking this too was due to my husband's gentle nature. While I want to boast about being blessed with such a wonderful person, I sometimes wonder if that was always the case, particularly because of my sister-in-law. The presence of my husband's sister, my sister-in-law, was the cause of the problem. She's significantly younger than my husband. Compared to women her age, she's youthful in appearance and manner, making her somewhat famous in our neighborhood. She's aware of her beauty and seems to enjoy polishing it daily. Up to this point, there was no issue. She's 58, so not exactly young, and I can't help but think she shouldn't be wearing mini skirts and showing off her legs anymore, but that's not really for me to judge, so I don't worry about it. The problem is that she always finds a way to make snide remarks to me. I'm not as pretty as she is, nor do I have the enthusiasm for yoga or spa visits.
Sally, you always look so dowdy. Aren't you embarrassed to be such a country bumpkin? Mike was wealthy, so why didn't he marry someone more beautiful?
She greets me with such insults and scrutinizes everything I wear as if appraising its value.
What's with using a no-name brand bag at your age? And those shoes. How long have you had them? You were wearing them the last time we met, weren't you? Sloppy people can be spotted by their accessories, even if their clothes are decent. I can tell right away. Doesn't Mike buy you anything? He's not into material things, so if you ask, he'd probably buy them, right?
I have enough bags and shoes, though not as many as my sister-in-law. If she calls me sloppy, so be it, but I've always been someone who doesn't shop much. In fact, I make it a point to throw away something old whenever I buy something new, so my house is rather Spartan. On anniversaries and birthdays, when asked by my husband if I wanted anything, I would without hesitation plan a trip. To me, objects can be bought anytime, but memories are priceless and irreplaceable. Now that my husband is gone, I'm glad I continued making that choice. Every time my sister-in-law made a snide comment, I would hint at this belief, but she would just scoff.
Mike wasn't much to look at either, so in that sense, you were a good match, right? But grabbing such a man to marry must mean you were after his money, weren't you?
No matter the insult, she always concluded with this. This is what troubles me about her. She insists I married my husband for his money and spreads this among relatives. Indeed, there were many women who approached my husband with that intent. He wasn't into gambling or nightlife, his only hobby was fishing, so I vividly remember being surprised by his savings when we got married. But I never had the intention to live lavishly off it. At that time, I too had a 20-year career with my company and had a decent amount of savings, not as much as my husband, but substantial. Our shared value of not overspending was one of the reasons we got married. not because I was after his money as my sister-in-law claimed. I explained this to her and asked her to correct the misunderstanding with relatives, but she never listened to me. She seems to have unilaterally decided that we don't get along and always finds something to criticize. My sister-in-law has always been competitive, and even my husband tried to avoid her when he was alive. Perhaps that's why she hardly helped with the funeral preparations. Although I was the chief mourner, she never once offered condolences when my husband started getting sick or when he was hospitalized. She even got angry when I contacted her about it, saying, "Don't bother me with such things." So I resolved never to tell her anything again, even in my heart. However, to avoid affecting my husband's condition, I pretended in front of him that his sister was concerned, telling him gentle lies. Ultimately, until his death, my sister-in-law never showed herself in front of my husband, and even at the wake, she acted as if she was reluctantly doing us a favor, like it was someone else's problem. Yet, the relatives around her would whisper, "She's been crying every day since she heard her brother was ill, almost losing her appetite and unable to shed tears. That's why she looks so drained. Maybe she didn't visit the hospital because she couldn't bear to see Mike in a weakened state." Hearing this, I was overwhelmed by an indescribable frustration, mixed with the shock of losing my husband, and I teared up right there. My sister-in-law, talked about as if she were a tragic heroine, looked too well-nourished to have lost her appetite, with no tear stains or swollen eyes. Despite telling me not to contact her, she acted meekly in front of the relatives. My sister, sensing my feelings, skillfully led me away. Otherwise, I might have lost my composure, yelled at the relatives. Realizing that my sister-in-law is selfish to the core, showing no respect even for the deceased, I resolved to limit any future interactions with her. I slowly sorted through my husband's belongings, balancing it with work and household tasks, while also healing emotionally. At first, every item of his that disappeared felt like erasing a memory, but I reminded myself that the memories with my husband were etched in my heart. While cherishing the time with those who occasionally visited the altar, I tried to regain my peaceful life. But, as expected, it was my sister-in-law who shattered this tranquility. She rang the doorbell and rattled the sliding door.
"Sally, you're there, right? Your sister-in-law has come all this way, so open up."
I never thought of her as my sister, but she yelled as if to make sure the neighbors heard. I was hanging laundry and couldn't pretend not to be home.
"What were you doing? You made me wait so long. I almost got sunburned."
As soon as I opened the door, before I could speak, she barged in, thrusting a fancy foreign brand shopping bag into my hands and starting to take off her shoes. "What's this all of a sudden?" I managed to ask, to which she dramatically sighed.
"Look, I've been so busy and couldn't visit, right? I thought you might be feeling down, so I brought something nice."
She snatched back the shopping bag she had handed me and began pulling out items while standing there. Jewelry, perfume, and fancy baked goods, none of which seemed appropriate for me. Did she really think I would be genuinely happy to receive these? Besides, my sister-in-law acted obnoxiously nice to me today.
I know I've been harsh to you, Sally, but you were the wife chosen by my only brother. I didn't want his wealth to fall into the hands of a gold digger. But seeing you at the funeral, I realized you were different. Only someone who truly loved Mike could shed so many tears and give a speech with disheveled hair, disregarding what others might think.
She's not used to praising people, it seems. Even when trying to appease me, she comments on my appearance and actions. However, the way she looked at me seemed almost respectful, as if meeting someone she admired, infused with a certain passion. Despite my confusion over her abruptly changed demeanor, she continued to shower me with compliments. Feeling increasingly suffocated by the presence of someone whose true thoughts were inscrutable, I gently said, "I'm sorry, but I haven't settled the estate yet. The house isn't in a state for visitors, so perhaps you could just pay your respects to Mike." Then, with her usual cold gaze, she looked at me and shouted, "You really are oblivious. Do you think I came here just to see your gloomy faces?"
It's about the inheritance. Isn't that obvious? You shouldn't have to make me say it.
"Excuse me." Confused by my sister-in-law's demanding gesture, palms up as if waiting to receive something, I was at a loss.
How long do you think I've waited? I have a pretty good idea of how much Mike earned, so I know roughly how much I should get from the inheritance. Even if you try to hoard it, Sally, it's futile. Hand it over now. If you think of deceiving, I'll call the lawyers and the police.
The division of property is being handled by the lawyers, so there's no deceiving here.
Don't play dumb. I'm entitled to half of the inheritance. It's supposed to be split between you and me, right?
I tilted my head at my sister-in-law, who was screaming with her face beet red. I had heard from the lawyer that siblings of the deceased are entitled to a quarter of the estate, which is divided further if there are more siblings. Since my husband and his sister were the only siblings, she would normally receive a quarter of the money. However, my husband often spoke about this issue before he died, pondering what to do. No wonder, as his sister had mocked his looks since childhood, and along with their parents, who favored the beautiful sister, seemed to have bullied him. To prove them wrong, my husband studied hard, earned scholarships, worked part-time, attended a top-tier university, and secured a job at a major company, eventually becoming very successful. That was about all he shared about himself, indicating he must have had a tough life before. Indeed, anyone would be troubled by the thought of the estate passing to such a sister. I, having been consulted about this, urged that the final decision was his to make. I only learned of my husband's decision after he passed away. Unaware of all this, my sister-in-law changed her tone drastically.
So you, just a wife, are going to take most of the inheritance. You're a money grubber too. I always thought it was suspicious, you marrying that plain man after turning 40. The only reason to spend a life with someone who has nothing but money is clear. Listening quietly, what about love? What about values? It's all just talk in the end. Give me half of my share right now, and I'll disappear, so hurry up.
Her sweet words and gifts seemed aimed at wresting my inherited wealth. Given her constant antagonism, I had suspected some ulterior motive. Her loudly screaming at the entrance of the house, where my husband's altar stood, confirmed her extreme lack of morals. I wondered what my husband, listening quietly from heaven, would think, and told my sister-in-law to wait while I fetched a certain document. Her eyes lit up upon hearing this, saying things like, "You really are understanding, Sally, and let's go have some fancy French food with that money." I didn't respond to her pace, and brought the document from the back of the room to give to her. "Here, from Mike, this is for you." What I handed her was my husband's last letter, his will. Upon realizing this, she quickly unfolded the tri-folded paper and scanned through it. Her perfectly symmetrical eyebrows moved up and down, clearly showing her disturbance at the letter's content.
What does this mean? I didn't know anything about this.
Her ignorance was her own fault for never trying to see her brother. I almost spoke out, but she slumped down weakly, likely not to grasp my words. The will stated that my husband shall inherit all his property to me. As a final act of gratitude to his wife, who had supported him in every way, leading a peaceful and fulfilling life together, he dedicated everything he had to me, leaving behind a letter so passionately worded it was almost embarrassing to read aloud. Reading this, I felt a warm surge of emotion, realizing that even in illness, my husband had thought of me, even though the main goal was to leave not a penny to his sister. In the end, there was absolutely no money left for the sister-in-law. The answer was clear, but my sister-in-law, staring into space, muttered, "What does this mean?" With her face pale, she was unresponsive to anything I said, so I almost had to force her out of the door and quickly locked it behind her. Through the door's window glass, I could faintly see her shadow swaying from side to side, dragging her body away. I thought she wouldn't bother me after reading the will, but to my dismay, she called me the next afternoon.
I never thought you were such a vile person, Sally. You deceived me so well.
Even over the phone, I could feel the intensity of her fury, giving me chills. But I hadn't done anything wrong, and I didn't deserve to be called wicked by her. I was about to respond, but she cut me off.
You think you've got the upper hand by pushing me down. Well, too bad, because you're about to see your face twist in agony. This is your punishment for angering me. I won't forgive you even if you beg.
I vaguely understood she was talking about the inheritance, but I had no idea what she meant by me feeling pain or begging. Silenced by confusion, she mistook my silence for fear and began to laugh loudly.
See, it's too late for apologies. I'd love to see you now, but I'm busy. I've just secured an appointment with my lawyer.
She boasted as if victorious, but I couldn't understand why she needed to see a lawyer or why she was telling me this. Instead of bothering me, she should just stick to her usual activities like yoga or spa treatments, I thought absent-mindedly. Then she yelled, "Don't you get the situation? Talking to you just frustrates me, which is bad for my beauty."
I'm not satisfied with the estate division, so I'm preparing to file a complaint. I don't know if you and Mike schemed alone, but a wife taking all the inheritance is unheard of. It's against the law. You can't just show Mike's will and expect me to shut up. You don't have a shred of conscience to use your sick husband just for your own gain. I have a right to my inheritance, and I'm going to claim it.
Apparently, she believed I was plotting to monopolize the inheritance. Thinking I had influenced Mike to write the will, I couldn't stay silent. It's a waste of time for you. Mike personally handed that will to the lawyer. I only read it afterward, and I couldn't have tampered with it. Also, the lawyer said, you have no claim to the inheritance. So, I think it's best you don't bother, as they won't take your case seriously. Her voice grew louder, possibly infuriated by my calm response.
What's with that tone? You won't be so composed for long. Just keep sitting pretty. I'm serious. I've called several times since yesterday and finally got an appointment. The lawyer must recognize my determination. They are on my side and can even get me compensation from you.
With a villain-like line, remember this, she hung up the phone. I couldn't fathom why she called, as she wouldn't have listened to anything I said. Perhaps she thought the mention of a lawyer would unsettle me. Far from reflecting on not receiving a penny from her brother, she was determined to take it by any means, which was almost refreshing. Months passed without incident, and I managed to tidy up my husband's cluttered study. Gradually packing up, I left our home filled with memories of my husband. He had always wanted to retire to a quiet house in the suburbs, so I decided to fulfill that wish. I sold the house and land we lived in, and used the proceeds as a down payment to move to the area where my sister and her husband live. It's regrettable we couldn't do it while my husband was alive, but our dog Maya, who lived with us for over 10 years, was delighted with the new home. She frolicked on the smooth flooring, so I bought a light-colored carpet to prevent strain on her legs from slipping. Letting go of our old home meant fewer possessions, but it also meant I could gradually create a more comfortable living space, which gave me something to look forward to. Yet, the eerie feeling of my husband not being there lingered, making the sparse furniture seem even lonelier. Especially when Maya was asleep, I found myself lost in thought, though I knew it wasn't good for me. One day, my phone rang as if to interrupt my hazy feelings. I jumped up and picked up the phone without checking who was on the other end of the line.
You're going to kick me to the bone, you pestilence.
It was my sister-in-law. Her sudden yelling woke me up completely, but I still had no idea what she was on about. Sensing my silence, she continued without waiting for a response.
It's your fault I'm getting divorced, because the inheritance didn't come through.
What? My absurd response was just a guess at her meaning. She probably told her husband they would get my husband's inheritance, and their relationship soured when it vanished. But to reach divorce over not getting an inheritance speaks volumes about the fragility of their marriage. It's not fair to dump their issues on me.
Why don't you apologize instead of staying silent? Your fault we can't make ends meet. What am I supposed to do all by myself?
You could get a job, you're still young in your 50s. She fell silent after my calm reply. Maybe she was irritated by the words just work, or maybe she was caught up in the term in her 50s. Whatever the case, my sister-in-law needs to get her feet on the ground and accept reality. If you lived on your husband's salary, you shouldn't need the inheritance. Why the divorce?
He was after Mike's wealth from the start. He said, "If we're not getting your brother's inheritance, you're useless to me. You're just a woman with good looks and money, decades spent together, all for nothing. I want my time back." It was an intense argument. Why should I be the one getting yelled at? He's the pitiful one, earning so little. I want my time back.
I only met my sister-in-law's husband when they got engaged, and then at holiday family gatherings. Like her, he favored flashy brands and luxury cars, giving off a frivolous impression. Her comment about his low salary suggests they probably both relied on approaching others for money. They surely had no savings and must have been living off my brother-in-law's income. Given the luxury items both my sister-in-law and her husband flaunted, they had no right to complain, having indulged themselves with his money. He married her out of selfishness and a penchant for extravagance, so it was all his own doing.
I even got turned away by the lawyer I consulted, who confirmed there was no inheritance for me. Everyone's against me, but you're the one I can't forgive. If you hadn't been around, none of this would have happened.
My sister-in-law apparently went to her lawyer, even though I had called to stop her. As I said, it was a wasted opportunity and a red herring.
Sally, you must have brainwashed my husband, right? He said he should have married someone like you. Why does your name come up in his words? You must have been seducing him behind my back.
How does that even make sense? I don't even have your husband's contact information.
Lies. My husband has never praised a plain woman like you before. You must have seduced him and had an affair. Confess, and I might forgive you if you give me the inheritance.
How? This conversation is pointless. Overwhelmed by her absurd accusations, I ended the call. The house was already being demolished, and the land was sold, so her showing up would be futile. I hadn't shared my new address, so our chances of meeting were nearly non-existent. I immediately set up a call block, deciding to live peacefully from now on. About 6 months passed, and I adapted to life with my dog, Maya. I dined out once or twice a month with my sister and her husband, enjoying my days. Sometimes we ate in the room with my husband's altar, which he probably appreciated. Thanks to regular health checks, my recent medical exam showed no issues, and local shops provided convenience, leaving me with little worry. The only concern was a call from the social services a few months back. Divorced and broke, my sister-in-law had applied for welfare. However, officials stated she couldn't receive it if she had family to assist, but relatives who once flattered her unanimously refused to help. Her lavish past was well known, leading to her isolation from family. Social services then contacted me, but given her past actions and motives, I felt no obligation to help. I don't care if she was on good terms with my husband before he died, but since she and her ex-husband joined forces and slipped up together, only looking for money, and did not even behave properly at the funeral, I have no right to do anything about it now. I hope that she will reflect on her actions and live her life, since she herself became addicted to money, even though she had always said that I was just after money. I don't know what happened after that. According to rumors, my sister-in-law got into trouble at the job she finally found and resigned in a flash. The neighbors of the house where my sister-in-law was living found out that her ex-husband was no longer around and moved out. When they found out about the mature divorce, which could be taken as a lie or a truth, no one around me knew how my sister-in-law was living or where she was, and I gradually forgot about her because I myself was not interested. Having regained peace of mind, I spent more time with Maya than ever before. Maya, who had always been quiet like my husband, stopped barking as she got older, and I was worried about her. My sister, who had always been a dog lover, must have grown attached to Maya as she often took care of her, because one day she suddenly contacted me to tell me that she had gotten a puppy. I excitedly went to my sister and her husband's house, and was greeted by him. Immediately, Maya's eyes lit up as she walked up to the puppy and looked at it with delight as it bounced around. I watched the scene with a smile on my face, hoping he would become a good friend to Maya.
Don't splurge with your son's money. Poor old folks, just go home.
During a vacation to celebrate my 60th birthday, Karen hurled these unbelievable words at my husband and me. My anger reached its peak when I heard what she said. "Shall we go home then?"
Yeah.
She probably didn't think we would actually leave. Leaving a bewildered Karen behind, we decided to go back home, leaving her in a foreign land. We are going to show her hell. My name is Alice Howard. I am a housewife who turned 60 this year. My husband and I, married for 30 years, were invited by our son Tommy to go on a trip to Maldives.
Mom and Dad, I never got to do anything parent-honoring for you. This is just a small token of my gratitude. Let's go together. No holding back.
I have 6 children, and Tommy, as the eldest son, has been supporting us. I worked part-time until our 4th child was born, spending my days overrun with childcare and housework, with just a few minutes to myself each day. Of course, there was never any time alone, and I can't even remember having a fun coffee time with friends since the kids came along. During this time, our son Tommy, since starting elementary school, took the initiative to help me and also took care of his siblings. With my husband busy as a company employee, Tommy's support was invaluable to me. I felt an immense gratitude towards him. As the hectic days went by, Tommy grew up, got married, and left the house, followed by the other children moving out for marriage or to the big city. It was just my husband and me left at home. While reminiscing about those noisy days, enjoying coffee with my now retired husband, Tommy came home for a visit after a long time. He had something important to discuss, which turned out to be this delightful invitation, and my husband and I were overjoyed. However, this conversation would lead us to an unbelievable situation.
Why did you even invite your in-laws to the trip?
These were the words of Tommy's wife, Karen. As Tommy, who brought his wife home, enjoyed a family dinner for the first time in a while, Karen called him out to the hallway during the discussion about the upcoming Maldives trip. Worried, I peeked to see what was happening and saw Karen confronting Tommy. Karen, with a terrifyingly harsh tone, was getting up in Tommy's face, giving him the evil eye.
It makes sense, doesn't it? The trip is also a celebration of the folks' 60th birthdays. Why wouldn't we invite them?
Why should we have to pay for them? If you're inviting them, they should at least pay their own way. Your mother does nothing but lays around at home. It's outrageous to think we should cover for such a slothful person.
Karen was a nurse, and Tommy was in the position of a doctor. They had no children, and she despised me for being a stay-at-home mom raising kids.
Excuses like no time to work don't fly with me. Time is made. People who can't manage their time just say that to escape. I absolutely refuse to spend my money for such a lazy person. I won't allow it.
Her yelling seemed to be aimed at making sure I could hear it inside the room, making my heart ache. I knew I wasn't exactly favored before, but I never imagined I was this disliked. And to think they believed I was a stay-at-home mom because I was lazy, which brought tears to my eyes, is just unbelievable. Yet, Tommy didn't hesitate to defend me against Karen's words.
You haven't raised 6 kids, so what gives you the right to act all high and mighty? Talk about it after you've walked in the same shoes. I respect my mom and am thankful to both of my parents. I'm taking them on this trip no matter what, got it?
To think my son had grown up to value his parents so much. I was deeply moved and cried silently, careful not to reveal my presence to Karen and Tommy. After that day, Karen became more hostile towards me when Tommy wasn't around. She would criticize the taste of my cooking, and during visits home would say things like "it smells musty," trying to belittle me with her words. It must have been too much for her to accept that Tommy defended me. Initially, I was downhearted and wondered why I had to endure this, but Tommy's words from that day helped me hold on. However, that changed when Tommy called me, saying he needed to talk.
Sorry for this, Dennis. I'm thinking of divorcing Karen.
My husband and I were shocked at the straightforward declaration. When we asked what happened, Tommy showed us 2 photos. In them, a woman who looked like Karen was arm in arm with an unfamiliar man. What's this?
While I was at a medical conference, a colleague sent this to me. Karen meeting up with some guy.
So, Karen is having an affair.
It was a shocking revelation. I might be biased, but I can't see any reason why someone would cheat on Tommy. Financially and looks-wise, there was nothing to complain about from a third-party perspective. Even relatives begged to have their daughter marry Tommy, as he was such an accomplished son. It's unbelievable that Tommy would be cheated on. I doubted my own ears hearing such an incredible story.
After we get married, I found out Karen had always been quite the player. She held back for a while to marry me, but it seems like she went back to her old ways when my business trips increased. At home and even at work, her lack of motivation has become too obvious recently. Honestly, I don't have the confidence to continue with her.
Hearing this, while he gripped the hem of his trousers with a pained expression, made my heart tighten. From a parent's perspective, he was always contributive at home. He grew into a kind son who understands people's pain, which to me is an invaluable treasure. Who could stand seeing such a son hurt like this?
That's why I'm thinking of getting a divorce, but this alone isn't enough to confront her with it. So, I need your help.
With that, Tommy made a certain proposal to us. Though shocked by what he suggested, if it would help Tommy, both my husband and I agreed to his plan. We decided to pull one over on Karen, so we came up with a plan. Time passed, and on the day of the trip, my husband George and I drove to Tommy's house to pick up Karen.
Thanks for picking me up, George.
She came out of the house wearing a wide brim hat and a white dress, clearly trying to play the part of a scheming woman. In fact, Karen had been making moves on my husband for a while now. Probably because his birth family was wealthy. Her eagerness for money was blatantly obvious. Whenever Tommy wasn't around, she would sidle up next to my husband, even once lying about getting carsick just to take my seat in the front of the car. Later, when I asked Tommy about it, it turned out to be a complete lie. She never had motion sickness. At that time, there was no reason to doubt her, so we just took her at her word, but now it's different. I'm certain that everything I had suspicions about was a lie, and both my husband and I are on high alert. However, showing our hand would ruin the plan. Today is our supposed celebration trip, but it's really to carry out our plan. We can't let her suspect a thing. My husband and I made sure to act as usual.
Tommy said he'll come later, so he asked us to go ahead to the destination. He's busy with work, it seems.
Landing at the airport and going through the procedures, Karen muttered her words with a bored expression. She probably wanted to flaunt having my husband and Tommy to herself, making me jealous. Whenever it was just the four of us, Karen acted in ways that seemed designed to stoke my jealousy. Looking back, I can see so many of these behaviors now. Why didn't I notice them before? Well, I did notice, but I think I just suppressed it. Thinking about all the hardships Tommy went through, I feared my feelings would interfere with his happiness, so I kept silent. But I don't need to hold back anymore. Standing confidently next to my husband, Karen wrapped her arm around his with a sullen expression.
I've never been on an overseas trip with my father, so I'm thrilled to be traveling with my father-in-law, George. You're making up for the memories I couldn't have with my father.
With a cackling laugh that seemed almost cartoonish, she flaunted a smug smile at me, then clung to my husband's arm, pushing her chest against him. My husband looked more annoyed than pleased by her actions, but Karen seemed oblivious to his discomfort. She was eagerly watching to see how I would react. But I maintained a firm demeanor, silently pleading with my husband to endure it, as we finished the boarding process. We boarded the plane with a tense atmosphere. And soon, in a far-off foreign land, she would face her comeuppance. After a long journey, we arrived at Vienna International Airport, greeted by cheerful flight attendants. Tommy was supposed to guide us, but he was absent due to work. As we wondered what to do next, Karen sweetly sidled up to my husband.
Can't we hire a guide now, George? I only got a little spending money from Tommy, and I don't have much on me.
Despite having a decent income herself, Karen seemed fully expecting to be treated by us. I guess there's also the matter of making sure my husband brought extra cash. His sigh of disbelief revealed his clear view of her sordid intentions.
Karen, I hate to say this, but we're here because Tommy invited us. You know, trying to make us pay seems a bit off, doesn't it?
I felt a jolt inside. He sounded like a grumpy old man laying on a guilt trip. It was hard to predict how Karen would react to such blunt words. The initial plan was to act upon reaching the hotel, but my husband unexpectedly took the initiative, causing me a bit of panic.
What are you saying? Do you want me, who didn't bring much money, to hire a guide?
We're questioning the expectation that you're entitled to our hospitality. Alice and I are here at Tommy's invitation. We heard he's taking care of the expenses, so we didn't bring much cash either. Assuming we'll just cover for you doesn't seem right.
Upon hearing we didn't have cash on hand, Karen clicked her tongue and distanced herself from my husband, raking through her hair with a lazy gesture. Both my husband and I were stunned by her blatant demeanor, which seemed to suggest that interacting with us was a waste of effort.
If you don't have money, just say so clearly. Really, useless old folks.
Karen's voice was loud enough to be clearly heard. At that moment, when she revealed her true colors, my husband and I exchanged glances and proceeded with our plan. Hey, Karen, that's no way to talk.
We're just stating the plain truth.
A lecture from both of you. I don't need that. Acting like it's natural for me to treat you, but you're relying on Tommy's money for this trip, too. Thinking you wouldn't have to spend a penny because you're being celebrated, right? You're no different, so I don't want your high and mighty lectures.
Looks like she's done pretending to be nice to us. She suddenly changed her attitude, stood arrogantly, looked down on my husband and me, and said something condescending in a mocking tone.
Don't live it up on your son's dime. Poor old folks, just go home.
At her words, my anger peaked. Shall we go home then?
Yeah.
Without taking the bait, I calmly spoke to my husband, but then Karen, flustered, interjected.
Talking big when you don't even have a return ticket. What's the point? That's hilarious.
Actually, she had only been given the one-way ticket by Tommy. She was explicitly told to be prone to losing things and is unreliable by Tommy, so she reluctantly settled for a one-way ticket, only to find out she couldn't return to the US without him. She ended up in a situation. But we are supposed to be unaware of her situation. If we were to find out about this pathetic situation, it would undermine her dignity. That's probably why all she could muster were these tough words. However, we already knew the story from Tommy. And we had already received something from him. No return ticket. What made you say that? I then pulled out the return plane tickets, including my husband's. Karen was dumbfounded. Speechless, her mouth agape. We do have our return tickets, you know.
Why do you guys have tickets?
Why? It's normal to hold on to your own ticket, right? Or what? Don't tell me you didn't get a return ticket from Tommy. I couldn't help but stare at her, showing that Tommy trusted us more than her, a sweet revenge for all the taunts. Even for someone like me, a stay-at-home mom she looked down upon, to mock her over such a trivial matter must be unbearable for her pride. While feeling somewhat petty, considering everything up to now, this was nothing. If anything, it was not enough. Watching her turn red with rage, I felt a sense of satisfaction.
No way. Just go home already. Just seeing your faces irritates me.
Her retort, almost like sour grapes, secretly had me holding back laughter. The sight of Karen retreating in frustration was incredibly satisfying. She had mocked others enough. Let her fully taste the misfortune. With that in mind, my husband and I decided to wander around the airport area until our flight back. After leaving Karen behind and returning to the US swiftly, we met up with Tommy at a cafe near the airport, as planned. Seeing us back, Tommy greeted us with a wry smile.
Welcome back, both of you. That quick return flight must have been tiring.
My body's all stiff, even in first class, it's stuff on the old bones.
Sorry, Tommy, for making such a quick return, especially in those nice seats.
I should be thanking you. Sorry for pushing you so hard, okay?
Stop it. I'm still young at heart.
But I was worried, you suddenly starting a fight with Karen at the airport, doing something unplanned. I didn't know what to do.
I just couldn't take it anymore. I had such a strong dislike for that flirty act of hers.
As my husband apologized with a rueful laugh, Tommy's phone started ringing. From Karen.
Yeah. It's been ringing off the hook since hotel check-in time. I bet she panicked when she found out her hotel reservation got canceled without her knowing. She's such a princess who can't do anything on her own.
Tommy scoffed at his continuously buzzing phone in silent mode. It was my first time seeing this dark side of him, and I made a mental note never to anger him.
Thanks to you guys, I gained a lot here and think I can finally divorce her. Really, thank you. Sorry for involving you in such a mess during your milestone celebration.
Don't be silly. In a way, this is a celebration for me too, knowing you won't have to put up with that anymore. During the few hours until Karen returned to the country, we enjoyed some rare quality time, just the family. Then, the moment of truth arrived.
Tommy, what on earth is this all about? Explain yourself.
After receiving an email from Karen saying she was on the plane, we headed to the airport. As soon as she stepped off the plane and saw me, she let out a roar that could echo throughout the airport. Realizing this was too conspicuous, we quickly got her into the car and drove to their house. Once home, Karen noticed something was amiss.
What is this? What's going on here?
She realized the house looked unusually bare.
Let's explain things in order. Shall we go to the living room first?
Ignoring the bewildered Karen, we proceeded inside. While thanking Tommy for the coffee, we quickly moved to the main topic.
Karen, we need to talk.
Before that, explain. What were you thinking, doing such a thing? Because of you. It's been one disaster after another. I couldn't get into the hotel, and I had to communicate with gestures because I couldn't ask people anything. Do you know how many times I was given the wrong directions? I walked so much I thought I was mountain climbing, and I'm exhausted. My legs are sore from the muscle pain. And then the return flight was in the cheap economy seats. Economy. I never thought I'd have to pawn my luxury watch.
As her shrill voice became too much to bear, my husband and I exchanged incredulous looks. Apparently, she had pawned her watch to get some money. Amid this, Tommy watched her intently, and after she finished her tirade, he quietly spoke.
Is that all you wanted to say?
What did you say?
Karen's eyebrows twitched in surprise, probably expecting an apology from Tommy, but his unexpected response took her aback. It must have been the first time she saw Tommy. You had always been kind and indulgent, looking at her so defiantly. She glared at him, trying to intimidate, but Tommy met her gaze unflinchingly.
So, you have no idea why you're in this situation?
Tommy's probing words seemed to finally make her question. Karen started speaking with a cold look and a haughty attitude, crossing her legs.
Of course. Who leaves their wife stranded abroad? What did I do?
She's sticking to her story. Nobody knows about her affair. She seemed to think so. Tommy sighed in exasperation, then showed her 4 photos. I didn't miss how her face went pale instantly.
Let's see if you recognize this.
Presented with undeniable photographic evidence of her affair, Karen faltered. There were 2 photos added there, showing Karen and the man she cheated with after their affair, and when my husband and I saw them, we looked at her with contempt. We looked at her as if she were something vile, putting distance between us.
You've been wasting my money for a while, and I noticed. But I also knew it's true that I made you feel lonely. I'm a workaholic, often choosing my job over family, so I said nothing. But I never imagined you were financing this man.
Tommy had hired a detective to discreetly investigate Karen until this trip. It was revealed that her lover was a gigolo, and she was his top-paying client, giving him the biggest tips. Their relationship had developed into a romantic affair, clearly crossing the line between a client and a service provider. Tommy found out that when he was away on business trips, he had been staying in their house for several nights.
You said you had a terrible time in Maldives. Then what about this? You deceived me, laughed behind my back, and even complained about me to your lover, calling me nothing but money, useless. I've confirmed it myself by meeting with him directly. I even have the audio of that conversation.
You met him?
Of course. I figured your side of the story would be full of lies. I got everything out of him first.
He then showed her what appeared to be a voice recorder, and Karen seemed to resign herself to the situation. She started to profusely apologize to Tommy.
I'm sorry, my dear. Please forgive me. It was just a moment of madness.
A moment of madness. I inadvertently reacted to her words. So, a moment of madness makes it okay for you to hurt Tommy like that. Tommy had always shielded me from her, caring for me. I knew how hard he had worked to balance his job and household duties for the sake of his family. Her words, betraying him so casually, made something inside me snap. How could you think an apology would suffice after all the pain you caused, Tommy? My eyes welled with tears, more from anger than sadness. My husband comforted me, wrapping an arm around my shoulder and gently hugging me. Watching us, Tommy then presented her with divorce papers.
I've heard about everything you did to Mom and Dad. I have no intention of continuing with you. This house will be sold. Pack your things and leave immediately. No matter if you deny the divorce, I am determined to proceed with mediation to separate from you. What you've done is now coming back to haunt you. Just accept it.
And so, our family cut ties with her. Even afterward, Karen kept pleading with Tommy, but he had run out of patience and coldly rebuffed her, finding her cries annoying, and decided to move back to our home until the divorce was finalized. The emptiness of their house was due to Tommy having movers transfer his belongings back to our place. Seeing everything being efficiently handled, I was impressed by how sharp he always was. As Tommy predicted, the divorce proceedings went to mediation. Karen, who had repeatedly denied wanting a divorce, couldn't escape it after photos of her affair and the lover's testimony came to light. She was even ordered to pay alimony, and the divorce was finalized. She came to our house several times, wanting to meet Tommy, but I turned her away at the gate. While apologizing for her disrespect towards me, she begged to speak to Tommy. However, I was furious. Stop taking us for granted. I will never forget what you've done, no matter what. Don't ever show your face to our family again. With that, I called the police, and after that, she never appeared before us again. Finally, we regained our peaceful days. Thanks to Tommy's arrangement, we were able to redo our 60th birthday celebration. The whole family gathered, along with our children and grandchildren, for a grand celebration.
Mom, Dad, live a long and healthy life.
While thanking Tommy saying this with a bright smile, I watched over the happiness and growth of the children.
I'm going to remarry the rich doctor. You, an old woman, should raise twins.
Nancy laughed at me mockingly when she said that. The man standing next to her also had a sneering grin on his face. There's no way I could leave the two adorable kids with such people. Are you sure about this? I'd be happy to. If they'll let me, I'd be more than happy to take care of them. Thinking this, I responded with a smile. But please never show your face to me and children again.
Yes, that's fine. I'm not interested in my kids.
Nancy went out laughing. As I glared at her back, that winds ran up to me.
Can we stay here?
Yes, of course. Let's live with Grandma from today on.
Yeah. We want to live with Grandma.
It's unbelievable that anyone wouldn't want such adorable twins. Hugging them, I vowed to make them happy. Then, in the blink of an eye, 15 years passed. Living a peaceful, retired life, that person came to see me again.
Hey, give me my twins back.
I am Susan Johnson, a 60-year-old housewife working in a factory. I have a son, Michael, and a husband who passed away a few years ago. My husband's family has been running the factory for generations, and that's where we met. When I was working diligently, he approached me and, We fell in love very quickly. After dating for a few years, we got married. Then I gave birth to Michael.
My dream is to take over Dad's factory when I grow up. So, I want to learn everything I can.
Michael said he inherited my husband's kindness and my earnestness, and I think he grew up to be a wonderful kid. Having been around the factory since he was young, Michael was well liked by everyone there.
After I graduate from high school, I want to work at the factory.
What are you saying? Michael respected everyone at the factory and even wanted to start working right after high school. However, our factory is large and has contracts with many major companies, so we're doing well financially. And Michael is smart enough to aim for a top university. As his parents, we hoped he would go to university. We really think you should go to university, given the chance.
No, I want to start working at the factory as soon as possible.
No matter how much we tried to persuade him, Michael was steadfast. It was quite troubling. Then, someone else convinced Michael.
You should go to university, Michael.
It was John Miller, who started working at our factory right after graduating from high school. He was close in age to Michael, and they spent a lot of time together.
Learn what I couldn't teach you. Make this factory even bigger, and make its name known worldwide.
John's words had an impact, and Michael listened. And then, he successfully went on to university. Michael, having studied business in university, used his knowledge to secure new contracts and further expand the factory's success. We believed we could continue to live happily, managing the factory together. We believed so, but just then, my husband fell ill suddenly. He collapsed at the factory and never regained consciousness, passing away shortly after.
From now on, I'll protect both the factory and Mom.
While everyone was engulfed in sadness, Michael, who had grown up, supported me and managed the factory well. Now, Michael is married and the father of twin girls, Maria and Millie.
Hello, Grandma. Grandma, we're here to see you.
You both made it. Good to see you. Take your time and relax. The twins were very lovely. Maria, the older sister, was serious, while Millie, the younger, was kind. They both adored me and hugged me whenever they visited me. I love these twins so much that I no longer felt the sadness of losing my husband.
When are you going to stop working, Mom?
I plan to work as long as I can. I don't want to be a burden to you in the future. Therefore, I was working in the factory. Thanks to that, I've been living fulfilling days. Taking it easy once in a while is good, too. On a day off. Today I had a day off from the factory and was about to do some reading after a long time. Who could that be? Suddenly, the intercom rang. No visitors were scheduled, so I puzzled and checked on the camera. What? Maria, Millie? It was the twins. Surprised, I quickly opened the front door and welcomed them in. What's the matter, you two? Where's your mom? Looking around, I saw no adults. Could it be that these 5-year-olds came here by themselves?
Mom said to go to Grandma's house today. She's too busy to look after us today.
Hearing the details, it seems their mother, Nancy, told them to come to my house and locked them out. It was snowing since the morning and very cold outside. No matter how far you can walk, let only children walk the streets. Were you cold? I'll make some warm cocoa for you.
Yay! We love cocoa. Thank you, Grandma.
As I served the twins warm drinks, I tried calling Nancy. However, there was no sign of her answering. So, I decided to contact Michael.
What? Maria and Millie are there.
Michael immediately answered the phone, sounding very surprised. He had been on a business trip since last week and was not home. He was due back today, but even if he hurried, he wouldn't arrive until the evening.
I wish I could rush over right now, but it seems impossible from where I am on a business trip. I'm sorry, but could you look after them until I get there?
Yes, of course. I immediately agreed to Michael's request, feeling sorry. I had no plans for the day anyway. Having the day turn into one spent with the adorable twins was actually a delight for me.
Thank you. I'll talk to Nancy myself.
Michael said before hanging up. Feeling the twins' eyes on me, I turned to see them looking somewhat anxious. Let's play together until your dad arrives. Can you tell me what games you like?
Yay! We're so happy to play with you. We want to play games.
For a while, we played games together. Then, Michael called me.
It seems like the phone is turned off, and I can't get in touch with Nancy either.
That's okay. I'll take good care of the twins, so don't rush and take your time getting here.
That really helps. Thanks, Mom.
After ending the call with Michael, I sighed. What could Nancy be up to? At times like this, it would be good to contact her family, but according to Michael, she seems to be estranged from her own family. So, they rarely communicate. It seems unlikely that her family would know anything. Hey, what does your mom usually do? Haven't you heard anything? Not knowing what else to do, I asked the twins.
Mom isn't interested in us. She has someone more important than us.
These words gave me a bad feeling. Could she be having an affair? Maybe it's time to investigate. While considering this, I made sure to keep the twins from feeling anxious.
Thank you for waiting and for looking after them.
Yay, Dad? Daddy, welcome back.
A few hours later, Michael arrived. Seeing their father, the twins ran to him joyfully. I was comforted by their happy faces and greeted Michael, who looked tired. Did you manage to contact Nancy?
No, not yet. Actually, I'm thinking about the future.
Michael said, seeming deeply concerned.
Depending on Nancy's response, I might need to take the twins and move back home.
You're welcome to come back anytime. I readily agreed to Michael's words. This seemed to ease Michael's expression a bit. Yet, I felt anger towards Nancy for putting him through this. Then, several hours later, as it had gotten completely dark, the doorbell rang.
Well, I've come to pick up my twins.
There was Nancy. I was irritated at her troublesome attitude. Before I could react, an angry Michael confronted her. Nancy, what have you been doing all this time? Clearly, she hadn't expected Michael to be there. Her eyes widening in surprise.
Why is Michael here?
Just answer my question.
I was called out by some mom friends and was meeting with them.
Nancy responded reluctantly under Michael's questioning.
Then why didn't you contact us?
My phone battery died.
Nancy dodged Michael's probing with evasive excuses. Michael sighed deeply at her responses.
Sorry for the trouble. Let's go home.
Michael apologized to me and took the unhappy twins back home. The next day, Oh, how unusual. I was a bit surprised when I received a call from Nancy and answered the phone.
Listen, Susan, because of your unnecessary meddling, Michael scolded me.
What?
If you had just silently taken care of the twins, there would have been no problem.
Nancy complained without letting me get a word in. I was momentarily taken aback, but then responded. First of all, isn't it your fault for locking out the twins? And at least give me a heads up next time. It was good that I happened to be home this time, but if I had plans and was out, those kids could have been freezing under the cold sky.
What are you talking back to me? This is why I can't stand old women.
Nancy retorted and hung up the phone. What is she thinking? I sighed, frustrated with Nancy's attitude. Then the phone rang again, and it was John's name on the display.
I went on a trip and wanted to give you a souvenir. Do you have time later?
That's lovely. I have time, so please come over whenever. John has always been fond of me, like his mother. He started working at our factory after his parents died in a car accident when he was in high school. Since his parents were my colleagues, I've been looking out for him. It seems Michael also cares for John like his brother.
May I come in? Susan, what's wrong? You look tired.
John asked me anxiously when he came to my house. Yes, a little. Would you mind listening to my story?
Of course.
So, I ended up venting to John. He listened and nodded along appropriately.
That's concerning.
John, after listening, murmured thoughtfully.
I know a detective. I can ask if they can look into it for you.
Really, that would be so helpful.
For me, Susan, you're like my mother, and Michael is like my brother. The twins are like my nieces. I'd do anything for such important family members.
His reassuring smile made me feel confident. A few days after that,
Mom, could you look after the twins this Saturday?
I was asked by Michael to take care of the twins. Despite the tension in his voice, I agreed to his request. Then, on the day, Michael, who looked like he had made a decision, and the twins, who looked sleepy in the early morning, came to my house. What's going on, Michael? Is something wrong? I couldn't help but ask Michael that question.
I'll tell you when I get back. Be good girls, okay?
Michael smiled at the twins and then left. We watched him go until he was out of sight, believing he would return that day.
Daddy has gone. Will he come back soon?
Yes, he'll be back soon. However, Michael never returned to this house again. What? No, that can't be true. Are you sure it was Michael? Michael had an accident at a tourist site and tragically never returned. The following period was incredibly difficult. Please, say it's not true.
Daddy, Daddy. Wake up, Daddy.
After losing my son and losing their father, I and the twins cried and clung to Michael's cold body.
Why? Leaving behind such lovely daughters. It's too soon.
John supported us through this time and helped with all the arrangements. The factory staff rushed over immediately, comforting our family, but
What is she doing? Her husband has just died.
amidst this, Nancy was nowhere to be seen. Even after the funeral, she made no contact and disappeared. Maybe it's better she's not here. I felt indignation at her actions. But without her around, at least I wouldn't have to deal with her disrespectful behavior. While thinking this, I cared for the crying twins, unable to recover. Who could that be? Just when things had finally calmed down a bit, the intercom rang, and I checked the camera, and it was Nancy. Nancy, where have you been all this?
Oh, hi there. Long time no see.
Angered, I opened the door to find Nancy and a flashy dressed man standing there. That's when I realized my bad feeling was right, and my anger turned to cold calmness. What do you want now, and how dare you show your face here?
Well, scary. Oh, this is my boyfriend. He's a doctor and rich.
She didn't mind my cold attitude at all. Nancy boasted about the man with her, smirking in a vulgar manner. Were you cheating on Michael?
It's not cheating. He's the one I really love.
Nancy said, laughing with the man beside her.
So, I have a favor to ask of you, Susan.
What is it?
The twins are in the way of my remarriage, so I don't need them. Can you take them in?
I was furious at her words. What did she just say? Did she say she doesn't want her daughters? I fell silent in an instant. And she went on to say to me,
I'm going to remarry the rich doctor. You, an old woman, should raise twins.
Nancy laughed at me mockingly when she said that. The man next to her also smirked and pleasantly. I couldn't possibly leave the two adorable children with such people. Are you sure? I'd be delighted. If I can take care of them, I'd gladly do so. Thinking this, I responded with a smile. But please, never show your face to me and children again.
Fine by me. I'm not interested in my kids.
Nancy went out laughing. As I glared at her back, the twins ran to me.
Can we stay here?
Yes, of course. Let's start living with Grandma from today.
Yeah. We want to live with Grandma.
It's unimaginable that such adorable twins are unwanted. Hugging them tightly, I vowed to make them happy.
Grandma, we'll come back home early today.
We'll make dinner, so just wait for us.
All right, I'll be waiting. Then, in what seemed like the blink of an eye, 15 years passed. Having retired, I would see off the twins as they energetically set off. We had completely recovered from our past sorrows and were living a normal life. So, what shall we do today? Living such a peaceful, retired life, I was visited by someone. Now an elderly lady, I was spending my days leisurely. The doorbell rang loudly. Who could it be?
Open up. You have the two of them inside, right?
When I asked a visitor through the camera, the person yelled without answering. Seemed like a woman, but unfamiliar. While pondering who it could be.
Hey, give me back my twins.
Hearing this, I finally realized that the woman was Nancy. She had aged and changed so much over these 15 years that I genuinely didn't recognize her. This is too much for me to handle alone. I murmured to myself and contacted some people. They arrived within minutes and surrounded her.
What are you doing here now?
John was the first to shout. He was glaring at Nancy with anger.
What do you mean what? I came to take back my daughters.
Intimidated by John's intensity and the crowd, Nancy still shouted defiantly.
They are my children, so give them back to me.
Her outcry had a reason. She must have seen them on TV. In fact, the twins have become quite sought after on TV. Maria as a popular singer, and Millie as a talented actress. These two are set to co-star soon, and were recently featured as beautiful twins. Nancy likely showed up after seeing this. What about that rich doctor? I asked Nancy. She contorted her face in ugliness.
I dumped that guy long ago.
While shouting, she began to explain the situation, even though no one had asked. The man she brought that day was not a doctor but a con artist. Actually, it was his brother who was the real doctor.
That man was after Michael's wealth.
The man approached Nancy for the money of Michael, who runs a large factory. After Michael's death, Nancy, who received the inheritance, and her boyfriend, who had amassed money by deceiving many women, lived extravagantly for a while. But eventually, his actions came to light, and he was arrested. In addition, the boyfriend was caught using his brother's name, and his brother got angry and disowned him. Nancy, having abandoned her destitute boyfriend, shamelessly returned to our home.
They were my daughters from the start, so I will take them back.
That's out of the question.
That's right. We won't let you touch our beloved girls.
John exclaimed, and everyone from the factory echoed in agreement. Indeed, the twins were precious children raised by all of us at the factory. We had no intention of handing them over to such a woman. Everyone, I have something to say. I spoke on the day Nancy abandoned the twins. I was prepared to raise them, but considering my age, I asked for support from everyone at the factory.
What a woman.
Truly terrible. Susan, leave it to us. We will raise the twins together with everyone at the factory.
Thus, we united to raise the twins, taking turns to care for them, playing and going out together. With everyone's help, the initially withdrawn twins gradually opened up.
You know, we have dreams we want to achieve. We promised Dad too. We'll definitely make them come true.
Eventually, they began to talk about their dreams. Their dream was to become an idol singer and an actress. Hearing this, we all watched TV together to learn, joined them in singing lessons and acting practice, and supported them wholeheartedly. I'm grateful to her for leaving the twins with us. Because of that, they were able to achieve their dreams. Had they stayed with Nancy, they might never have realized their dreams, or even grown up healthy.
And now you show up demanding them back. Who do you think you are?
Be quiet. I am their mother. Those twins have an obligation to support me.
At these words, everyone present showed anger. Which mouth dares to call itself mother? It was at that moment.
Whose mother?
We don't have an ugly mother like you.
It was then that a voice was heard. When everyone turned to look, they saw the twins with expressions of disgust.
Maria, Millie, it's been a while, my girls. You've both grown up to be so beautiful.
Nancy approached the twins with a broad smile, but the twins responded with increasingly displeased expressions.
And who's my mother?
You treated us like nuisances and locked us out in the cold, didn't you?
And you abandoned us as soon as Daddy was gone, didn't you?
The twins asked in a cold voice. Though they were young at the time, it seemed they clearly remembered their mother's actions.
Well, there were circumstances.
Faced with their words, Nancy was at a loss for words.
We remember everything clearly. How you neglected us.
You betrayed Daddy, and you were the reason Daddy is no longer here.
At these words, Nancy's eyes widened. Michael had long been aware of her infidelity, and on that day, Michael ambushed Nancy and her partner during their affair trip at the tourist site and confronted her. Nancy made excuses even then.
I'll divorce you and take a hefty alimony.
Disgusted with her, Michael attempted to leave. However, panicked by the mention of alimony, the two tried to stop him by grabbing his arm. Michael shook them off, lost his balance, and stumbled into the roadway, where he was tragically hit by a truck.
How did you know?
Nancy, trembling, muttered upon hearing the truth about what happened 15 years ago from the twins.
I was the one who investigated it.
It was John who responded to her. He had desperately searched for evidence to avenge his brother. He managed to find a witness and uncovered the truth through sheer persistence. Normally, this information should have been reported to the police. But by then, the investigation had already been concluded, and without concrete evidence, there was only the witness's testimony. We had no intention of involving ourselves with Nancy anymore and chose to remain silent.
We will never forgive you, and we certainly don't want to support you.
If you still insist on taking us back, then pay all the back child support you owe.
Nancy appeared flustered by these words. We felt joy seeing how much the twins had grown.
What will you do?
Or should we call the police to take you away?
At the twins' pressure, Nancy exclaimed, "You must be joking," and fled. The factory workers applauded the twins' courage and maturity. You've grown up so much.
Oh well.
We'll make sure to repay all the kindness we've received.
At this, John's face looked like he was about to cry. He had protected and raised the twins like their father, stepping in for Michael. That's why he was probably as moved as I was.
Oh, number John.
Don't cry, it's embarrassing.
I'm not crying yet.
At John's response, laughter erupted once more. It was a warm and happy scene. Watching them, I too couldn't help but smile broadly. A few days after these events unfolded.
By the way, that woman who was lamenting about being our mother was apparently arrested.
I heard too. She tried to approach us again, and the police found her location.
Oh dear. Listening to the twins talk about Nancy. Afterwards, it was revealed that she was an accomplice of her boyfriend, and she was apparently arrested by the police. While she had made it seem as if only her boyfriend was the fraudster, Nancy was also involved. She was engaged in a scheme similar to a honey trap, and the police were after her.
Thanks to everyone at the factory acting that day, there were many witnesses.
It was easy for the police to find her.
The incident was reported by someone who witnessed the events of that day, leading to a detailed investigation and resulting in Nancy being sent to prison. She won't be out for a long time. That's good. With the police handling it, we can focus on the shooting.
That's right.
Definitely watch us, Grandma.
What's more, she could do this. She might claim to be the mother of the beautiful twins once she's released. However, that will only backfire on her. Of course, I'll watch. It's your crowning achievement. The project they were filming was about their life story. Losing their father at 5, abandoned by their mother, and raised by the factory workers where their grandmother worked. Their journey from that adversity to success would be depicted. Thus, the more Nancy claimed to be their mother, the more she would be despised by those around her. She brought it upon herself. Let her thoroughly experience the hell she's created.
That's right. And with the broadcast, the factory will gain even more popularity.
We'll need John to work harder.
Currently, John, who took over after Michael, is managing the factory.
I will protect everything.
He said this and continues to protect us even now. We decided to express our gratitude to him together, smiling at the FOD. The drama, once aired, became a massive hit. People sympathized with that Wynn's situation and loathed the mother's character.
Some zealous fans dug up information on Nancy, even discovering she's in prison.
Oh dear, hell awaits her upon release. No one will be there for her. Her infamous boyfriend is serving a long sentence for multiple frauds and is unlikely to welcome her back. Regarding her family, it turns out that after the incident 15 years ago, they were investigated and confronted. Nancy's parents had disowned her long before, and they were completely unaware of her current situation.
She was disowned for being too wicked and causing trouble for the family. If only she had learned her lesson back then.
Indeed. Therefore, no relatives would be there to receive her. She will likely spend her future alone, continually regretting her actions.
I feel like we've finally gotten revenge.
John remarked, a weight lifted off his shoulders. He had acted thoughtfully for us, fiercely guarding the factory. That's why the twins have come to adore John as their father. Thank you for everything. At my words, John gave a shy smile.
I have something to discuss with you, Susan.
What's up?
I'm thinking of leaving the factory.
I wasn't particularly surprised by his words. I was concerned about it, especially since I heard he was handing over various responsibilities to younger employees.
The twins have achieved their dreams, and I've left the factory in reliable hands. Now it's time for me to pursue my own dream.
If that's your decision, I won't object. Thank you for everything, I said with a smile, prompting a happy grin from John.
Then first, would you go on a trip with me?
Really?
I've always dreamed of going on a trip with my family.
John asked with a childlike smile. I stared at his smiling face for a few seconds, then nodded with a smile of my own. If it's with family, we have to invite the twins too.
Yes, we need to choose a place where everyone can relax.
After a while, the four of us went on a trip. During the trip, the twins and I gave John a surprise gift, and when he finally broke down in tears, we all burst into laughter. It's been 15 years since you've been gone. I wonder if you and your dad are getting along well there. I mused at the graves of my husband and Michael. The time when I will join the two of them may not be far off, or it could still be a long way away. The children have grown up and achieved their dreams. Following that drama, Maria became an even more popular idol. She is scheduled to go on a nationwide tour soon. Millie received an offer to act in an international movie and had traveled abroad. Michael, John has avenged you properly. After leaving the factory, John has been enjoying his passion for travel. Everyone has achieved their dreams. So, don't worry, just wait for me to join you there, whenever that time comes. Saying this, I stood up. I wonder what I should do next. I decided to live life to the fullest until my days come to an end. I believe that will be my way of repaying the kindness I've received. Right, today is the day Millie is supposed to call me. I better get back and prepare, I murmured, starting to walk back.
Hi, Grandma.
Maria, aren't you in the middle of your national tour?
I was nearby and wanted to see you. And I want to join the video call with Millie.
Maria said this with a lovely smile. I'm sure Millie would have the same smile. With their smiling faces as my support, I will keep on living my life today.
Grandma, this is Anna.
Logan, my grandson, brought a woman named Anna. She was a pale-faced, quiet-looking woman who greeted me with a gentle smile, perhaps out of nervousness. I quickly ushered them into the house. For the meeting, Logan had brought her along, and my daughter-in-law, Rachel, was in a good mood, asking them how they had gotten to know each other.
Mom, please serve them some tea quickly.
Rachel, who had been in a good mood just minutes before, was now visibly upset. The first thing Logan mentioned to his parents was that Anna was pregnant. I was so shocked that I lost my voice. Rachel showed some displeasure at the fact that the two were having a shotgun wedding.
We really want to make this work.
We may be immature, but please allow us to marry.
The two were earnestly seeking marriage approval from his parents. Being the grandmother, I felt it was unnecessary to comment and watched silently, but I was moved by their attitude. However, Rachel made a blatantly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face.
Shotgun weddings are so tacky. Just because there's a baby doesn't mean you have to marry. Right, Mom?
Suddenly addressed, I let out an "what?" as Rachel turned a sarcastic smile towards me. Well, indeed, just because there's a baby doesn't necessarily mean you have to marry. Logan's face fell for a moment. I expected that reaction. But you two are trying to move forward because of the baby. After all, it's something Logan and Anna decided together. It's not something anyone else can oppose. Rachel, shouldn't we be supporting Logan and Anna? Rachel drained her coffee mug in one gulp.
Mom, please prepare some more coffee.
She handed me the cup, crossed her arms, and sighed.
Well, opposing it is probably pointless anyway. So when exactly are you planning the wedding?
Oh, we want to do it soon, considering Anna's condition.
I see. So for us, it's like finally taking a break from parenting.
Rachel said this thoughtfully, then turned to face me in the kitchen.
We're going to be living with family from now on, so can our unwanted housekeeper please leave?
Excuse me. Rachel's abrupt words left her husband John stunned, and both Logan and Anna were left with their mouths open in surprise. What should I do now? My name is Catherine. I'm a 70-year-old grandma. I live in a 2-generation household with my only son, John, and his wife, Rachel. Although it may seem happy from the outside, I have been feeling down since my husband passed away a few years ago. Rachel, John's wife, is a strong-minded woman who speaks her mind immediately. Our relationship isn't bad, but I often feel being used by her. When Rachel goes out with friends, she expects me to do the laundry and even asks me to drive her to the station. Rachel seems to think that living in a 2-generation household is her way of showing filial piety. Contrary to my desire for a quiet life after my husband's death, I find myself in a complicated situation.
Come on, get up now.
Rachel's near-screeching voice echoes from the bedroom for Logan and Anna. Oh boy, she seems to be in a bad mood again today. Last night, John worked late, and despite it being a weekend, she woke him up at the usual time to get ready to go out. I tried to speak quietly when I bumped into John in the bathroom. John, are you okay?
I'm fine. I got about 5 hours of sleep.
John smiled gently at me through the mirror while wiping his face with a towel. I've been worried because John has looked pale recently. Despite my concerns, my husband would reassure me he was fine while working, until one day he suddenly collapsed and passed away. That memory was always in my mind, and if possible, I wished to let him rest on his days off. From afar, I could hear loud footsteps. When Rachel appeared in the bathroom, she frowned and made a clearly displeased expression.
How long are you washing your face? Hurry up, I'll be late for my meeting with my friends.
Sorry. I'll change right away.
John, being timid, quickly left the scene to change his clothes. Meanwhile, Rachel turned her gaze to me and handed over a note she was holding.
Mom, this is the shopping list for today.
Okay, got it. Have fun with your friends.
The weather seems nice today. Please open the window and vacuum.
Rachel left without waiting for my reply. After watching her brazen departure, I let out a heavy sigh. Even when my husband was alive, Rachel had always been a woman who spoke her mind to us. At the beginning of our living together, I had told her, "Don't be shy," but as time went on, her aggressive nature became more apparent. Cooking had always been my task, especially since Rachel was not good at it. If she doesn't like the meal, she would push the plate away, saying, "I told you I can't eat this," or she would grumble about wrinkles in the laundry I had folded. Even so, I had always tried to keep a quiet smile on my face, so as not to make waves, because she was the woman my son John had chosen. But after my husband died, Rachel's attitude became even more extreme, and it was exhausting my spirit.
Catherine, you're home all day today, right? Make sure the bath is ready when I come back.
Rachel left through the front door without looking at me, saying those words. She goes out with friends on a weekly basis. From the beginning of her marriage, she did not do much housework or childcare, was only concerned with her appearance, and often spent a lot of money. She was very sociable and made acquaintances in many places. There were many times I suspected her of infidelity when she was younger, but John always believed she wouldn't do that, so I never pursued it further. After dropping Rachel at the shopping mall and returning, I was surprised to see John carrying a box of chocolates.
Oh, this. Rachel said she's giving them out at her reunion next week.
Really? All of these?
Rachel says she has her pride. She doesn't want to be seen as struggling with money because we live with her parents. Sorry, just let her be.
Of course, it's okay. I understand. Sitting in the chair, I felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. After a while, I took the shopping list Rachel had given me and went out. My familiar shoes felt heavier than usual. Perhaps due to my age, I often felt a dull pain in my knees with every step. Yet, imagining Rachel's likely snide remarks about wasting gas, I gently stroked my knees, urging my heavy feet to persevere. Returning home with shopping bags in both hands, sweat beading on my forehead, I set down the packages in the entrance and stretched my bent back. Then, Logan appeared.
Ah, Grandma, welcome back. I thought you weren't here, so you were shopping.
Logan looked at the bags I brought back, pursing his lips slightly. Since Logan, the only son of John and Rachel, started working last spring, we had seen less of each other. Though we lived together, he was probably busy with work, not returning until late at night and leaving early in the morning. Moreover, he would dress up and go out on weekends. It was rare for Logan to be home during the day on a weekend. Before I could take off my shoes, Logan had taken the shopping bags to the kitchen and began putting things away quickly. Glancing sideways, I sensed a joyful atmosphere in Logan's expression. Did something good happen? Logan smiled as he carefully placed eggs from the pack into the fridge.
Actually, then someone I want to introduce. I'm thinking of bringing her home next week.
As I processed his words, I listened intently, realizing my grandson had reached such an age. Someone you want to introduce, could it be, maybe?
Maybe, Grandma. There's also something I've been thinking about a lot.
Something you've been thinking about?
Yes, I can't talk about it now, but I'll surely tell you someday. For now, would you meet the person I want to introduce?
Excited, Logan made me smile unwittingly. I was curious about what he had been thinking about, but more than that, I was interested in what kind of woman he would bring home. We had lived together since he was little, but Logan had never brought home a girlfriend before. Maybe his absence from home since starting his job was because he was dating, I concluded to myself. For the first time in a while, I forgot the usual unpleasantness and started cleaning while humming lightly. Of course, I had informed Rachel and John about this, but John only muttered about marriage, and Rachel seemed uninterested. On their next day off, Logan brought home the woman he wanted to introduce. Rachel had asked me to clean up in front of the house, and while I was watering, an unfamiliar car pulled up, which made me a bit wary, but then I relaxed seeing my grandson waving with a smile from the driver's seat. The car was a rental. Perhaps he had gone to pick her up in a rental car, which made me internally smile, thinking Logan must be quite smitten.
Grandma, this is Anna.
Seeing the happy face of my grandson introducing the woman beside him, I couldn't help but smile. Anna, Logan brought with him, was a pale-faced, mature-looking woman who smiled quietly and greeted me in a small voice, perhaps nervous. I quickly ushered them into the house. For the introduction, Logan had brought her, and Rachel seemed in a good mood, asking the two how they had become acquainted. At the table set for 4, Rachel and John sat facing Logan and Anna, while I was in the kitchen preparing tea for everyone.
Catherine, please serve them tea quickly.
Rachel's mood had turned sour just minutes after being in a good mood. Because Logan had first told his parents that Anna was pregnant. I was so surprised that I was speechless. The pleasant atmosphere from minutes ago froze in an instant, with Logan showing a seriousness I seldom saw in him. Rachel showed some displeasure at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding.
We really want to make this work.
We may be immature, but please allow us to marry.
The two earnestly sought parental approval for their marriage. As a grandmother, I felt it was unnecessary to say anything and watched silently, but I was moved by their positive attitude. Watching Logan pleaded earnestly in front of his parents, I felt tears forming.
Of course, we support your marriage. It's better to marry soon for the baby's sake and have a peaceful mind.
Thank you, Dad.
Logan said with a smile, looking at Anna. Rachel made a blatantly disgusted face, waving her hand in front of her face.
Shotgun weddings are so tacky. Can you explain how this happened, Anna?
Anna was taken aback by the unexpected question.
Well.
She mumbled, looking down at the table. Logan quickly put his hand on her shoulder.
Times have changed, and this kind of marriage isn't unusual anymore. Besides, we have our farts and are determined to do our best.
Logan, you proposed marriage in a hurry after hearing about the baby, didn't you? Was it a well-considered decision?
It was a serious relationship considering marriage, just that we hadn't found the right time, and the baby provided a good opportunity for us.
Just because there's a baby doesn't mean you have to marry, right, Catherine?
Suddenly addressed, I let out an "what?" as Rachel directed a sarcastic smile at me. I remembered a recent TV feature about single mothers we watched as a family. Indeed, having a baby doesn't necessarily equate to marriage, but I felt that wasn't the point here. Yes, indeed, just because there's a baby doesn't automatically mean marriage. Logan's face fell for a moment. I had anticipated that reaction. So, I organized my thoughts before speaking, something I later wanted to boast to Logan about. But, you two are choosing to move forward because of the baby. Regardless, it's a decision made by Logan and Anna together. It's not something anyone else can oppose. Rachel, shouldn't we just support Logan and his decisions? Everyone present might have thought it was just a careless statement from an old woman, but Rachel just drank her coffee in one gulp.
Catherine, please prepare more coffee.
After passing the cup, she crossed her arms and sighed.
Well, opposing it would be pointless, I guess. So when exactly do you plan to get married?
Oh, we want to do it soon, considering Anna's health.
I see. So for us, it's like finally stepping back from parenting.
Rachel said this thoughtfully, then turned to face me in the kitchen.
We're going to live with family from now on, so can our unwanted housekeeper please leave?
Excuse me.
Now that my son is getting married, we want to live with just our close family.
I was taken aback by Rachel's sudden words, and both Logan and Anna were left with their mouths open in surprise.
Once Logan's child is born, they will live here for a while. The baby's night crying might bother you, Catherine.
No, I'm fine with it. In fact, I want to help if I can.
But I see no advantage in living with someone who's likely to need caregiving soon. You're no longer needed. So, can you leave?
I felt heartbroken but managed a brave smile, not wanting to worry Logan and his family. At that time, I didn't take Rachel's words seriously. However, day by day, Rachel's efforts to drive me out became more overt, frequently saying, "Please leave soon." When I talked to John about it, he just looked troubled and remained silent. What shocked me was that Rachel was managing almost all of my late husband's estate, including the house. My husband, a doting father, had left everything to our son, John, meaning I practically owned nothing. And John, being under Rachel's influence, left me stunned, facing the loss of both home and property. What should I do now? I muttered while looking through old albums with my late husband at night. He was always gentle and never angry, just a calm person. I wondered if his nature had allowed Rachel to become so domineering, feeling like the root cause lay with both my late husband and myself. Months passed in this oppressive atmosphere, with Rachel's harassment continuing daily. I couldn't leave, enduring everything silently. One day, while I was showering, the water suddenly turned cold. Worried it was broken, it seemed Rachel had turned off the water heater. Thinking she didn't realize I was bathing, I turned it on again, only for it to be promptly turned off. When I asked her not to turn it off while I was bathing, she yelled, "It's a waste of electricity." Then I resorted to washing with the bath water, but soon, Rachel started draining the tub after her use, forcing me to wash in cold water even in winter. I was distraught and spoke to John, who weakly suggested, "Maybe bathe when Rachel is out." I sighed deeply, dismayed by his timidity. Rachel kept telling me, with a sneering laugh, "You should find an apartment and move out soon." I felt helpless against her words. Amidst these depressing days, a piece of bright news arrived today. Anna had given birth to a healthy baby. For a moment, Rachel and I joyfully celebrated together, both with tears in our eyes.
If only you would leave the house soon, I would truly be happy.
Rachel suddenly said with a cold look, after the shared joy. I doubted her character at that moment. Glancing at John, he appeared indifferent, purposely focusing on the newspaper's front page. Due to Rachel's insistence, Logan and his wife stayed in the family home, but Rachel, who had wanted to live together, showed no interest in caring for the baby. I did what I could to help Anna, who, despite being overwhelmed with caring for the baby, always expressed deep gratitude.
Thank you so much for everything.
Don't worry about it. You're going through the toughest time now. I'll do anything I can to help, just like a grandmother should. Those were my genuine feelings. After a really busy few months, Logan said to me without any premonition,
"I have something important to discuss."
"Can't we talk about it here?" I responded while cooking dinner, not stopping my hands as they chopped the ingredients, waiting for Logan to continue.
"I want to talk just with you, Grandma. There's a place I want you to come to this Sunday, without telling Mom and the others."
My hand holding the knife paused. "Without telling Rachel." As I turned to Logan, he had a subtle, happy expression, reminiscent of the secretive, pleased faces he used to make as a child when planning surprises for me and his late grandfather. Logan had always been close to us. And looking back, maybe Rachel felt that her only son's affection was being taken away by us, which might have been unpleasant for her. Perhaps Logan realized that being with Rachel meant I was too intimidated to speak, and he understood that. I felt touched by his kindness, and my affection for my gentle grandson and his wife grew even more. Next Sunday, Logan, Anna, and the baby took me to a newly built condominium complex, a short 10-minute walk from our house. As we walked, Logan shared that he had purchased the condo before the baby was born, encouraged to live with his family. I was astounded by his decisiveness in buying it without consulting Rachel and the others.
Sorry to make you walk, Grandma.
I need to keep my legs strong. Besides, this distance is nothing for me, I replied, patting my thin legs, though I felt pain in my knees even after just a short walk, deciding not to mention it. In a room of a brand new condo, there is a simple piece of furniture and cardboard boxes in the corner of the room. It seems to be the belongings of Anna, who used to live alone. Logan made coffee in the kitchen as if he was accustomed to the place. While Anna put the baby to sleep in another room, Logan, with a solemn look, started, "You know." I felt the ticking of the clock on the wall resonate unusually loud.
Won't you live with us?
His sudden proposal startled me. I almost dropped the mug I was holding. Logan looked at me earnestly. Thinking it was a joke, I smiled weakly, but Logan's gaze drifted off distantly.
I've always hated the way Mom had been treating you since I was a child.
Well, your mother is a bit strong-willed.
But you're always told to leave the house, and Dad never stands up to her. I can't bear to see you treated so poorly by Mom anymore.
I thought you were going to say something else, but that's not necessary.
Do you remember when I first said I wanted to introduce Anna? I mentioned something I had been thinking about.
I recalled him saying something like that. It was a while ago, but it left a strong impression on my memory because of the way Logan said it, with the implication that he was determined to do something upon his marriage.
I've been loved and cherished by you and Grandpa since I was little, and I loved you both so much. But I always felt Mom was very rude to you too, and I've wanted to help you ever since I became an adult.
Logan, did you really think that way? Leaning forward with resolve, Logan looked intently into my eyes.
Let's live together. There's no need for you to suffer alone in that house.
Speechless, Anna quietly returned from the other room and sat next to Logan. She had been listening from the next room and looked at me solemnly, understanding the conversation.
Logan has shared this with me. If you're okay with it, could you live with us?
What a kind offer. I'm truly touched, but I don't want to intrude on the life of a newlywed couple like you.
It's not an intrusion. We need your guidance in parenting, and having you live with us would be a great support.
And apparently Anna, too, had been harassed by Rachel a lot, and had developed a feeling of dislike toward Rachel. She had been taunted about her shotgun marriage, and had been yelled at to quiet the baby during nighttime crying fits. When Anna wanted to visit her parents' house after giving birth, Rachel retorted, "So you don't like being with me, I get it," making Anna repeatedly explain herself in frustration.
We're asking you, please, can you live with us?
Logan and Anna both pleaded at the same time. Silently looking down at their faces, I felt tears streaming down my face. "Thank you." At that moment, no other words came to mind. And so, it was decided that I would live with Logan and his family. Of course, this news would soon reach Rachel's ears. As soon as I agreed to move in, Logan promptly informed Rachel and John. Something I had asked him to do. I was certain Rachel would strongly oppose it. Telling myself this was my final battle, I left Logan and his family at the condo and returned home, opening the front door. Rachel, who had called me into the living room as soon as I got back, started yelling furiously.
"What's this about, Catherine? You're not seriously considering living with Logan, are you?"
"No, I'm thinking of accepting Logan's kind offer."
"You can't be serious."
Rachel scoffed. Next to her, John frowned, looking troubled.
"It's absurd to think of moving in with a newlywed couple. It's clear you'd be a burden to Logan."
Yes, I was worried about that too, but they both have accepted me. I want to honor their feelings.
"What are you saying? John, say something."
John, who had been silent, looked at Rachel with vacant eyes, seeming completely drained.
Rachel, I want a divorce.
"What? I thought you were talking about something else."
I can't take it anymore, this life.
"Wait."
The usually calm John raised his voice, causing Rachel to flinch. He stood up, confronting Rachel with a stern look.
I can't continue with you. Your treatment of me is one thing, but what you've done to Mom is unforgivable.
"What the heck, John? Don't start yelling now. We're talking about Logan living with Mom, right?"
Mom will live with Logan. That's settled. Now it's about you and me. I can't live with you anymore.
"Why are you bringing this up all of a sudden?"
I've tolerated your behavior since Mom had been putting up with it. But if she's moving out to live with Logan, it changes things. It's our issue now. I've wanted to divorce you for a long time, with all your suspicious behavior and alleged affairs since we were young.
"I didn't do such things."
Rachel, unusually unsettled, darted her eyes around. John had always been gentle, but as a child, he was untamable when angered. Rachel probably had never seen John angry. He tended to prepare meticulously to confront someone when angry. John carelessly pulled a large brown envelope from his work bag and spread it on the table. It was an infidelity investigation report from years ago, clearly proving Rachel's affairs without even needing to read the details. Rachel sat down, dumbstruck. John said nothing more and walked to his room. I noticed the living room curtains fluttering. The window was open, and I felt a soft breeze. I wondered if our embarrassing conversation had been overheard by the neighbors, and held my temple. "Rachel, I can't say much about you and John, But you two need to have a serious talk. Rachel remained silent, just sitting there. After refusing to divorce, Rachel took it to court, but the infidelity investigation was the final blow, and the divorce was finalized. I heard through the grapevine that Rachel remained aggressive after the divorce, gradually pushing people away and leading a lonely life. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already been living with Logan and his family for 6 months, helping with the great-grandchild's care and feeling happy every day. Then one day,
Grandma, Dad is here.
returning from a walk with the great-grandchild, I found John sitting solemnly in the living room. It had been half a year since I had seen my son, and he looked somewhat healthier. After putting the great-grandchild to bed, I smiled at John. "Getting more sleep now that you're divorced?"
Thanks to you, I can sleep for 8 hours.
John said this with a brightness I hadn't seen before. I remembered my son always had this innocent smile, even if he had aged and grown a beard, reminding me of his younger days and making me chuckle. "So, what brings you here today? You're not going to say you want to live with us, are you?"
Well, that's actually why I came. Of course, I'll contribute to the new home expenses.
That's only right. You've learned to manage your finances properly after the divorce.
I've already discussed it with Logan and Anna. I plan to buy this apartment with the inheritance left by our late father in a way that they agree with. Now, I can take care of you, Mom.
John was never weak, just timid by nature. His decision after the divorce was a result of careful consideration about his future. Looking at my son, grandson, Anna, and great-grandchild in turn, I closed my eyes. I saw my late husband's image in the back of my eyes, smiling gently as if to say, "Isn't that nice?" What's nice about it? I went through so much trouble. If you had lived longer, I might have been happier. But then I reconsidered. My current happiness was thanks to Logan and Anna, who had wished for it. My gratitude for these two was beyond words. Suddenly, the great-grandchild started crying loudly, and I quickly went to the crib, lifting the child into my arms. After a few gentle rocks, the great-grandchild settled comfortably and fell asleep in my arms.
So, there's no money left in this house, right? We don't need to deal with them anymore, do we?
That's true. I guess we don't need our parents anymore.
What?
I mean, cutting ties with you, you know. Humoring a broke old lady doesn't benefit us at all.
Right? She's been trying to mooch off us, and even without a penny to her name, she expects us to take care of her. Better to cut ties now.
I understand your point. So you're saying your inheritance will be just $30,000, and that's the severance for ending the parent-child relationship, right?
Yay, that's fine.
After George passed away, Michael and Daisy showed their true colors. They confronted me with a declaration of disownment, as if to take revenge for their failed plans. $30,000 is a lot of money, but they will regret accepting that money. 2 years after George's death, I was sitting on a park bench, eating my sandwich. The peaceful moment vanished with a familiar voice.
Isn't that Mom over there?
What?
Really? Look, she looks so tired, feeding pigeons in the park.
No, I'm not feeding the pigeons.
That's true. We took all the money after all, so of course you'd be homeless, huh? How's the homeless life treating you?
My anger had long passed, leaving me speechless and aghast. I sighed softly and resumed my lunch.
Mom, why are you ignoring me? Oh right, we've cut ties, so I shouldn't call you Mom anymore.
How about homeless hag then?
That's a good one, homeless hag, haha.
Michael and Daisy kept mocking me, taking advantage of my silence. After finishing my sandwich, it was time to reveal the truth to them. You've been going on about homeless this, homeless that, but who are you talking about?
We're talking about you, homeless hag.
I'm not homeless, dear. I live over there.
What?
I pointed to a building and explained the truth to Michael and Daisy.
What?
Shocked by the truth, it was too late for them to regret. I am Emily. I'm a 60-year-old housewife. My husband, George, is 67 and still working. George quit his job about 20 years ago to start an IT company. The company has grown successfully, especially in the last 10 years, as he ventured into new fields, leading to rapid growth. Now it's a significant enterprise. I don't quite understand all this data science and big data stuff that George talks about. Given his age, George has already retired as CEO, but he continues to work as the chairman. However, he seems to think it's about time to step down completely. We have one son, Michael. When George retired as CEO, Michael didn't take over the company. He isn't helping with George's company at all, quite the contrary.
I don't want to be seen as living off my father, so I'll do my best on my own.
After graduating from college, Michael joined a company unrelated to IT and moved out. I was a bit disappointed when Michael didn't take over George's company because I had hoped he would. But as a proud parent, I felt a bit proud when I saw him choose not to rely on his powerful parents, and I couldn't help but smile when I heard his decision.
I won't force you, so do what you want.
George seemed to share my sentiments, offering a supportive nudge to Michael, despite looking a bit disappointed. Everything was fine until Michael got a job. After that, he rarely contacted us, only coming home about once a year. Lately, he just calls and doesn't visit at all. Well, I suppose that's not unusual for men, and as long as he's doing fine, that's what matters. Still, I can't help but wish he would reach out more. Then one day, Michael called. It's rare for you to call.
I have something to report. I'll be coming home soon.
What's the report?
I'm getting married, so I want to introduce her to you.
Really? That's wonderful. I was already happy to hear from Michael, but I was ecstatic to hear about his marriage, and I couldn't help but exclaim loudly. My sudden outburst made George, who was leisurely watching TV, jump and turn towards me. I returned his glance with a beaming smile. He looked puzzled, unaware of Michael's marriage news. Michael would bring his fiancée home in a month, Michael will be bringing his bride-to-be home soon.
That's still 3 weeks away.
3 weeks will fly by. Since Michael's call, I've been reminding George almost daily that Michael will be home soon with his bride-to-be. George might be tired of hearing it, but I can't help repeating it. I just can't help being so excited about it. But this marriage announcement would soon bring me a sense of unease. A month later, Michael and his fiancée arrived.
We're home.
Welcome. Come in. George is waiting in the living room.
Thank you.
His fiancée, Daisy, looked young and cute like an idol, instead of having the sleek beauty of a model. Her nervousness, glancing around at the entrance, was endearing. As I led them to the living room where George was waiting, she kept looking around.
Welcome. Have a seat.
In the living room, George seated Michael and Daisy opposite of him. I sat next to him. Daisy continued to look around curiously. Feeling a bit embarrassed by her scrutinizing gaze, I asked her, "Is there something you're curious about?"
Oh, number, it's just. This is so different from what I imagined.
What?
I had heard that George runs a large company.
Hey, don't say embarrassing things like that out of the blue.
Daisy's comment and Michael's flustered attempt to cover her made George and me exchange glances and burst into laughter.
Was the house more ordinary than you expected?
No, it's not that.
Don't worry about it. We're not really into material things. So even though George runs a big company, our house is just average size. And we don't deck ourselves out in designer brands or have fancy meals every day.
I see. I'm sorry for the odd comment out of the blue.
I told you, there's no need to be nervous, right? You see, Dad isn't a very imposing person.
It seems Michael laughed along too. And with Michael's laughter, it appeared that Daisy's nerves had eased, and the conversation flowed smoothly after that. Daisy looks young but is actually 27, and talking to her, you can tell she's really mature. I had been worried about Michael not marrying even after turning 30, but now that he's going to be happily married, I feel relieved. 3 months later, Michael got married. It's joyous in itself, but Michael's marriage brought an unexpected bonus.
Hello, Mom. Everything okay over there?
Yes, everything's fine.
You and Dad are getting up there in age, so please take care of yourselves.
It seems like that's all you talk about every time you call. Since getting married, Michael has started calling once a month. Daisy probably found out he hadn't been calling at all before and suggested he should call regularly. Michael, not used to calling us, seems unsure what to talk about, always asking about our health instead of discussing his work or marital life. While I wish he'd share more, I always listen with a smile, enjoying his concern. One day, a while after Michael got married, he and Daisy visited us at home. I prepared some homemade appetizers to welcome them with enthusiasm. However, Daisy seemed a bit displeased. "Daisy, is there something you can't eat?"
No, it's not that. Thank you, I'll eat.
Daisy responded with a smile, but I didn't miss the brief shadow that crossed her face when she saw the appetizers. And she hardly touched them. Maybe there was something she couldn't eat after all. I felt anxious, constantly checking Daisy's expressions, worrying I had made her uncomfortable. I became so fixated on her reaction that I spoke less, even as everyone else seemed to be enjoying the conversation. Eventually, it was time to see Michael and Daisy off. While George and Daisy talked at the door, Michael whispered to me, out of their earshot,
Mom, homemade appetizers aren't really a thing anymore.
"That's not true, is it? There's nothing old or new about homemade appetizers, right?"
That mindset is outdated, Mom. The appetizers you made prioritize shelf life over appeal, right? Nowadays, it's all about using fancy ingredients for appetizers. Daisy must have been disappointed.
Really? I guess I'm out of touch with what young people like these days. I'm sorry. While I believe there's nothing wrong with making appetizers, I was too concerned about Daisy's impression and ended up apologizing to Michael in a low voice. After the small appetizer incident, our monthly calls became less frequent, dropping to once every 2 or 3 months. I felt down, thinking I had upset Daisy with the appetizers. Seeing me like this, George comforted me gently.
Daisy wouldn't get upset over appetizers. Maybe work is just busier, or continuing the monthly calls was too much. Going from no contact to once a month is a big jump, isn't it? Even if it's every 3 months, it's good that he calls at all.
His words lifted my spirits a bit. However, even then, I couldn't say it was a complete recovery, and negative feelings remained in a corner of my heart. And it seemed that the negative emotions lingering in my heart had the power to attract bad things. 6 months later, George fell ill.
This is it. I can't work anymore. Guess it's the right time to retire.
In the hospital bed, George seemed relieved about not having to work anymore. But having been married for 30 years, I understand. He must be thinking he was frustrated about being forced into retirement by illness. He smiled to avoid worrying me, and that consideration pierced my heart. Of course, I had told Michael about his illness.
What? Dead's ill. I'll come to visit soon.
Michael's response over the phone seemed indifferent. George's condition worsened after he collapsed. Still, Michael and Daisy never visited him in the hospital. Gradually, the once every 3-month calls ceased, and they never returned home after he fell ill. Time passed, and 3 years later, George passed away.
So, did finally kick the bucket. Well, he was over 70 and had made his company successful, so he probably lived a content life, right?
Even when I told Michael over the phone about George's passing, his reaction was indifferent. They showed up at the funeral but didn't help out, and as soon as the service was over, Michael and Daisy quickly left. Remembering them laughing as they got into their car, my sadness at George's absence turned into anger. However, this anger was fleeting, and soon I was overwhelmed with sadness again. There was so much to do, like paperwork and clearing up, but I couldn't get anything to progress as I wanted. About a month after George passed, I finally started to feel a bit better. It seems time does heal most wounds. But just as I was regaining my spirits, a new problem emerged. One morning, while doing laundry, the doorbell rang.
Mom, open up.
Looking at the intercom monitor, I saw Michael and Daisy standing there. Confused by their sudden visit, I headed to the front door.
Dad's office was this way.
Hold on.
As I opened the door, without any greetings, Michael and Daisy hurriedly entered and made a beeline for George's office. Left at the entrance in a momentary lapse, I hurried after them.
Where is it?
It's probably in one of these drawers, I guess.
The door to George's office was left open, and I could hear they were rummaging through the drawers. "What are you two doing?" They stopped opening drawers and turned to look at me. I had a hunch, but I was praying it wasn't true.
It's about time to talk about the inheritance, right? So, we came to collect what's ours.
He was a CEO and chairman of a big company, and it seems like he didn't spend much, so there must be plenty of money.
Sadly, my prayers went unanswered. Michael and Daisy threw a few words at me and resumed rifling through the drawers. Seeing them act like thieves, I lost the will to stop them.
Found it. Is this it?
Oh, is it there? What's inside? Haha.
Excitedly, they flipped through George's bank book. But their expressions darkened as they saw the balance.
What's this? There's hardly any money in here.
Damn. So, there wasn't much money after all.
It was clear they had come looking for George's money. But I couldn't grasp what they were talking about, and my thoughts froze, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded.
Mom, you have been living a comfortable life, but what a way to end it, ho.
Michael's voice snapped me back to reality. As my consciousness cleared, I saw them smirking at me. Still not understanding the situation, I was ready to be ridiculed as I asked Michael, "What do you mean by a terrible end?"
No need to play dumb, we know.
George's company was taken over when he got sick, right?
That means it was in the red and got absorbed by another company, right?
What? What are you talking about?
A guy holding a company that's almost bankrupt surely doesn't have any money. Still, we thought that being at the top of a big company, even if it was going downhill, there would be some money left. My plan is ruined.
Yeah, what a disappointment.
Wait, what are you talking about? Despite listening to them, I couldn't understand a thing, and frustrated, I raised my voice. But they, still with their villainous grins, were unfazed by my outburst.
I didn't join Dad's company because it seemed like a tough job with all that complex stuff. Why sweat it out at Dad's company when I could just wait and inherit his fortune, right? Exactly. It's smarter to just coast through an easy job, huh? Aw man, yet things didn't go as planned.
I tried to stay on your good side at first, being all nice and making Michael call you. Even endured those awful homemade appetizers.
You stopped all that once it was clear Dad wasn't a tough guy, right?
And you just accepted it as downgrading from a sure-win life to a normal one when you heard Dad sold the company.
I'd give up, but you'd expect at least $100,000 in savings, right? Look at this bank book, only $30,000. I wonder if closing a company costs a lot.
Well, we should be grateful for these $30,000 and just take it.
Listening to Michael and Daisy blabbering selfishly, my anger was on the verge of exploding. But I clenched my teeth and pushed down the words rising in my throat.
What's wrong? Your face is all red. So, there's no money left in this house, right? No need to bother with you anymore, right?
That's true. We don't need a parent who spoiled my plan.
What?
We're cutting ties with you. No point in sucking up to a broke mill, right?
We don't want to be hassled for money or care when you don't have a penny to your name. Better to cut ties now.
I get your point. So your inheritance is just that $30,000. And that's our severance for cutting ties, right? I can keep the rest, right?
Yay, that's fine. We don't need this house and we don't want to be saddled with any debt. We're good with just the $30,000.
Michael and Daisy left laughing, just like at the funeral. I didn't want to give them even $30,000. $30,000 is a lot of money. But later, they will regret receiving that $30,000. 2 years after George passed away, I was roaming around town on an errand. Moving around is tough when you're past your mid-60s. Exhausted, I decided to rest on a park bench. With a heave, I sat down and took out a sandwich I bought from the supermarket for a quick lunch. As I ate, pigeons gathered around. Watching the pigeons, I felt at peace. Indeed, they are a symbol of peace. But that tranquil moment was shattered by a familiar voice.
Isn't that Mom over there?
What?
It's true. Look, she's got that tired look, feeding pigeons in the park.
No, I'm not feeding the pigeons.
Huh, that's right. Still not spending on appearances, huh? Oh, I guess you have no money left to spend. We took all the money, so naturally, you'd be homeless, right? How's homeless life treating you?
Michael and Daisy never really listened to me. My anger has long passed, and now I'm just speechless and dumbfounded. I sighed quietly and resumed my lunch.
Mom, why are you ignoring me? Oh, right, we cut ties, so I shouldn't call you Mom anymore.
How about homeless hag then?
That's a good one, homeless hag.
They continued to mock me, laughing at their own cruel jokes. After finishing my sandwich, it was time to reveal the truth to them. You've been going on about homeless this, homeless that, but who are you talking about?
We're talking about you, homeless hag.
I'm not homeless, dear. I live over there.
What?
I pointed to a building. They slowly turned their gaze in the direction I was pointing. Though it appeared small and distant, it was a fine high-rise condo. I thought luxurious condos weren't my thing at first, but living there proved to be convenient. That condo has barrier-free units for the elderly, and I live in one. Plus, with care staff on site 24/7, I feel safe knowing help is always available.
What? Stop bluffing. There's no way a homeless hag like you could afford to live there.
Well, yes, that's the condo George left for me.
What do you mean?
He actually owned 5 condos. I moved into one, and I'm the owner of the others, so I have rental income. That's why I'm not struggling for living expenses.
Ha ha ha. If you're going to lie, at least make it a believable one.
It's true. I'll show you proof, but only a little since I don't usually show off. I pulled out documents related to the ownership and rental agreements of the condos from my bag, and they were so shocked their jaws could have dropped. My errand today was related to these condos, so I happened to have the documents with me. They seemed skeptical, but after seeing these documents, they finally understood I was telling the truth.
Where did Dad get that kind of money?
You two thought Dad's company was sold at a loss, but it was actually a proper sale. He bought these condos as an investment with the money from selling the company. That's why there was only $30,000 in savings. I think he wanted to leave an inheritance in a form other than cash. Maybe he still wanted to do something business-like after suddenly retiring due to his illness. Realizing the truth about the condos but only receiving $30,000, they were in a daze. However, claiming to own 5 buildings might seem like a stretch, as Michael suggested. Building one condo costs millions. For 5, it would be hundreds of millions. It's unlikely to have that much money just from selling a company, and even big corporations can't easily build 5 condos. Actually, I own units in different buildings, not entire buildings. When I said 5 buildings, I meant that I own units in 5 different buildings, totaling 6 units. It was easier to say it that way. They seem to have misunderstood that I own entire condo buildings, but I can't be bothered to correct them, so I'll let it be. Moreover, it ended up sounding like I owned 5 whole buildings when I actually have units in 5 buildings, but owning 6 units is still significant. Each condo unit he bought costs over $500,000. So with 6 units, that's over $3 million. He invested most of the money from selling his company into these condos. He must have had a lot of fun making one last big purchase with the money he worked his whole life to earn.
Now that you have so many, shouldn't you share one with us?
Yeah, managing all that must be tough for you alone. We can help.
When they learned I was an owner of multiple condo units, they became cautious in their words, their speech awkward. Their attitudes flipped entirely. Of course, I can't trust such people. No need for concern from someone I've cut ties with.
What?
Wait, even if we've cut ties, we're still family. That means when you're gone, the condos automatically come to me, right?
Yeah, right. No need to apologize to this old lady here.
They began to smirk again like villains. But I have no intention of handing over George's precious legacy to such unkind people. Unfortunately, you won't be getting anything.
Planning to write in your will not to pass on anything to me, that's useless. I know my rights as a child can't be easily nullified.
Yes, that's why I plan to dispose of the assets eventually.
What?
I intend to transfer the condos to George's acquaintances.
What?
I live in one of the 6 condo units, but the rest are inhabited by George's friends. They are all married and running their own businesses, so I don't expect them to move until I pass on. Thus, I don't worry about vacancies. The people living in my condo units have supported me and were helped by George during his lifetime, so when my time comes to join him, I plan to transfer the condos to them. I think it's much better than leaving them to Michael and Daisy. Also, I'm thinking of donating the money gradually accumulating from the condo rents to his cherished company. It won't be a large amount, But since I've already given Michael and Daisy $30,000, I don't want to give them a penny more. Well, when my time comes, I'll make sure to leave absolutely nothing behind."
What?
Michael collapsed to the ground, drained of strength upon realizing I had no intention of leaving anything behind. $30,000 is a lot of money, but it's not an unattainable amount for Michael to earn. Of course, he would regret throwing away the chance for the condos for just $30,000. It's not pleasant to talk about life after you're gone while you're still alive. But this time, I took pleasure in seeing their frantic faces. Well, I've got other things to do, so I'll be going now. Goodbye, estranged strangers. After my break, I left a park with a light step. Michael was so regretful about missing out on the condos that he ended up buying a small apartment building. But driven by his frustration and lack of knowledge, he struggled with increasing occupancy, and the building seems to be plagued with vacancies. Consequently, he's been dealing with ongoing financial losses. After sinking his savings into the apartment and taking out loans, he can't sustain this forever and will eventually need to sell. If that happens, he might be left with a massive debt. And if he struggles to find a buyer, the situation could become even more dire. If no buyer is found, he might have to demolish the building and sell just the land, which would be a terrifying thought with demolition costs added to the debt. I live comfortably in a senior-friendly condo. The residents of my condo, who were helped by George, also look after me. While living alone as an elderly person can be lonely, that's not the case for me. The weather looks nice today, so I might go for another walk in the park.